Yeah, live started. So let us start.
Yes.
So, should I introduce or Shashank is?
Sir, you can do introduce Jagmohan
Okay.
sir.
साथियों, हमारी वेबिनार सीरीज के एक और अंक में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। और आज हम अपनी वेबिनार की इस श्रृंखला की शुरुआत सबसे पहले किसानों को उनके एक ऐतिहासिक आंदोलन की लिए अपना पूरी सॉलिडारिटी के साथ शुरू करना चाहते हैं। We really want to start this another webinar episode of the All India Forum for Right to Education on the questions of social justice by expressing our heartfelt solidarity with the historic movement of peasants, which is going on right away. And before we come to the speaker of today, and the topic of today, which is again directly related to the question of the rights of peasants, I would like to invite um, um, a poetess from Punjab, um, Ms. Rajkaur ji, and she is going to express in her own feelings and today's context through a Punjabi poem. So we'll do that first, and then I'll introduce the speaker, and then we'll go on. Yeah. तो राजकौर जी, आज के हालातों पे जरा आप अपनी कविता के जरिए रोशनी डालें, और उसके बाद फिर हम आज की वेबिनार की आगे की कार्रवाई शुरू करेंगे। उस दिन नेटवर्क टूट जाने की वजह से 26 तारीख को हम आपकी बात नहीं सुन पाए, पर आज आप हमारे साथ हैं। राजकौर जी, आपका स्वागत है।
ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। ਤੇ ਇਸ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ੀ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਆ, ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਵੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋਈਏ ਉਸ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਪਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ। ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣੀਏ ਜਾਂ ਘਰ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਦਾ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਦਈਏ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਅੰਨਦਾਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰੋਲ ਕੇ, ਤੱਕੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਕਾਣਾ ਮੀਣਾ ਤੋਲ ਕੇ, ਮੰਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਹੱਕ ਤੁਸਾਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸੋਟੀਆਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਲੇਟਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਜਾਈਆਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ। ਦੱਸੋ ਜਰਾ ਚੋਣ ਤੁਸਾਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਪੱਖ ਦੀ, ਨਿਗਾਹ ਨਹੀਂਓ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਕਦੇ ਪੱਥਰ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਦੀ। ਲਾਲਚ ਨਾ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਖਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਬੋਟੀਆਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਲੇਟਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਜਾਈਆਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ। ਸੱਚ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੂੜ ਦਾ ਮੁਲੰਮਾ ਨਹੀਂਓ ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ, ਸੱਚ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੂੜ ਦਾ ਮੁਲੰਮਾ ਨਹੀਂਓ ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ, ਚਾਨਣ ਕਦੇ ਹਨੇਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ। ਖੱਡਾਂ ਖਾਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਦੱਸੀ ਜਾਣ ਚੋਟੀਆਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਲੇਟਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਜਾਈਆਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ। ਫਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਦੇ ਫਸਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਉੱਗਦੀ, ਫਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਦੇ ਫਸਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਉੱਗਦੀ, ਸੌਦੇਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੁੱਗਦੀ। ਨੀਤੀ ਘੜੋ ਚੰਗੀ ਛੱਡੋ ਪਰੇ ਸੋਚਾਂ ਖੋਟੀਆਂ, ਨੀਤੀ ਘੜੋ ਚੰਗੀ ਛੱਡੋ ਪਰੇ ਸੋਚਾਂ ਖੋਟੀਆਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਲੇਟਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਜਾਈਆਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ। ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਪਲੇਟਾਂ 'ਚ ਸਜਾਈਆਂ ਅਸਾਂ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ।
बहुत ही बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया। शुक्रिया राजकौर जी। उम्मीद है आज के स्पीकर के बाद आपकी और इंद्रजीत कौर जी की कुछ और इसी तरह की कविताएं सुनने को मिलेंगी। आज टुडे वी हैव a very esteemed speaker with us, who is by training a computer scientist who worked in the rural areas with the farmers for their betterment. a historian by passion, and a revolutionary by dissent and action. This is no other than Professor Jagmohan Singh, who has really proven himself to be the nephew of Shahid Bhagat Singh, the chairperson of the All India Forum for Right to Education, the director of Bhagat Singh Creativity Center, and the general secretary of the Federation for Human Rights. And he is going to speak on a very, very topical issue today. The rights of peasants and others working in the rural areas as enshrined in the UN Charter. आज हमारे जो वक्ता हैं वो एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण शख्सियत हैं। वो अपनी ट्रेनिंग और अपने पेशेवर रूप में एक ऐसे कंप्यूटर साइंटिस्ट हैं जिन्होंने गांव के किसानों की बेहतरी और उनकी की बेहतर टेक्नोलॉजी के लिए अपने जीवन भर कार्यरत रहे हैं, और जिन्होंने जो कहिए कि जिनका पैशन है क्रांतिकारी इतिहास लिखना, और जो अपनी पारिवारिक विरासत से ही क्रांतिकारी हैं। शहीद भगत सिंह के खानदान से तो है ही, उन्होंने उसको बिल्कुल अपनी जिंदगी में आत्मसात किया है। वो ऑल इंडिया फोरम फॉर राइट टू एजुकेशन के चेयरपर्सन हैं। वो शहीद भगत सिंह क्रिएटिविटी सेंटर के डायरेक्टर हैं। वो जनरल सेक्रेटरी हैं ऑफ द फेडरेशन ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक राइट्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस। वो हैं प्रोफेसर जगमोहन सिंह, जो आज हमारे बीच में बात रखेंगे कि यूएन चार्टर में, संयुक्त राष्ट्र घोषणा पत्र में किसानों तथा गांव में काम करने वाले अन्य लोगों के सामाजिक न्याय की किस प्रकार की संकल्पना, उनके किस प्रकार के सामाजिक न्याय के अधिकार स्थापित हैं। तो बिना और समय जाया किए आई इनवाइट Professor Jagmohan to deliver his presentation, and I request Shashank to moderate rest of the proceedings, including the question answers and other things. So over to you, Professor Jagmohan, now.
Yeah. Thank you, Vikas ji. First of all, what I am is because of all my friends like you and other people from All India Forum to Right to Education, from Democratic Right Movement. So thanks for those words. Today we have a Human Rights Day. I have a presentation which I would like to share. So let me. This is actually today we are considering, and let me, I have requested Rammurthy ji to later on give a Hindi version of that. I will present it in English. So this today, the topic we have chosen because this is a day for universal human rights, 10th of December, which has its own history, and particularly with the current era, we have to learn something. I will come to that. But as told by Vikas, that it is social justice and UN Declaration of Peasant and Rural Workers' Rights. This declaration has been adopted in 2018, and it is very important how it came up. We will. So first of all, I wanted to draw your attention to the history of Universal Human Rights Charter, that how it all came up. We know that there was a fascism in Italy, there was Nazism in Germany, and Nazism at that time also was a myth of National Socialism, the word they used, but both violated the human rights of their own country citizens. And that caused an unending suffering to the world. And that was the Second World War was there. But as the fascism, there were other dictatorships also, militarism of Japan and Spain, which were defeated. And as a result of that defeat, it was thought that what is to be recognized in which the citizen is not a slave of his own government, but he is a citizen of the universal human brotherhood. So this universal human rights charter was drafted. And along with that, that was the era when we should see that even now German has a totally free education, because where the Nazism was living, to counter that, the social justice agenda also came up. Similarly, in England, in 50s, people actually raised a lot of wires that you can spend so much money on destruction. Why not to take care of your own citizens' health? So national health program came. So all those those activities were also outcome and which is now recognized as social justice. And 2017, UNO also adopted an agenda for social justice. So I think these developments, well, Human Rights Charter was the base on which fundamentally the human man as a or a being part of the human uh, community, he has to be assured some rights which are beyond and they cannot be curtailed by the states. That was a basic concept. If we look back at our own freedom struggle, it was having a social justice as its root. Like British colonization was denial of human rights and social justice. The poverty, famine, drudgery of the rural working classes were central issues while our freedom struggle was going on. And free education as a tool of liberation was even conceived at that time. And very interesting thing which I found is that as a member of the Legislative Council, Gopal Krishnan Gokhale put forward a proposal for compulsory and free primary education in 1910. Uh, while I was going through the debate on directive principles of state policy, which is the obligation of the government to Indian citizens, I came across this Professor K.T. Shah's, who laid down a principle that how this chapter is to be interpreted. Every citizen should have the right to compel the state to enforce these obligations by whatever means may be found practicable and effective. And conversely, the state should also have the right to see that every citizen fulfills his obligation to the state. But there was another reference to that K.T. Shah said that when Gokhale gave that suggestion of free primary education, the one of the objection was that British government doesn't have sufficient money to support that system. And the money wanted was 3 crores in 10 years. So he say that they bureaucratically they crushed that idea, but this in the next 4 years they spent 30 crore rupees on war. So that was the issue which is particularly relevant for us when we talk about free education, and we hear the same type of arguments that the government doesn't have the money to support the social justice things. Now, uh, well, just that was one background in which we can see it, not going more detail of that. But if we talk about the Universal Charter of Human Rights, the core principles which have been uh, delineated there is that these are universal, they are inalienable, that all people everywhere in the world are entitled to human rights. Even a person cannot voluntarily give them up, nor can other take them away from him or her. It is indivisible and interrelated. Rights are completely interdependent and depends on each other for their effectiveness. That you cannot be selective in applying the human rights to the citizens. It is a non-discriminatory because everyone is entitled to this human rights without discrimination. It is empowering and participatory that these rights endow people the power of to claim them from the government, as opposed to the charity, which is an act of generosity. We hear this word these days quite common, uh, is the philanthropy, which is a type of charity. Human rights are owned by everyone. And accountability, the government have certain duties and obligation to respect, protest, and fulfill human rights. Individuals and non-state actors will have the duties to perform that. So this is just what we had, and based on this, there has been quite a bit of the struggles in Latin America. If you find it that in Latin America, which has been almost because in 71, the Chile was the first country to be tested for new liberalism. And at the same time, the Latin America had all those policies which lately now are being imposed on India. And that is those struggles of the rural communities and peasants. And if you just historically, if you know that Mr. Lula represented a movement of landless peasants and rural community people, which brought him to the presidentship also. So those struggles, they raised an issue that why these human rights are not applicable to us because our position, particularly in the rural communities, is different. And here, rural community includes the indigenous peoples also, though we have UN has another charter of rights of the indigenous peoples. So this was in 2017 that finally, after a long debate and discussions, the United Nations Human Rights Commission accepted it as a proposal. And in 2018, it was brought up as a full charter. And interestingly, when the charter was adopted, it was in 17th of December 2018. India is one of the signatories. Those who didn't sign it are those countries which export food. They are Australia, Canada, UK, USA, and few other countries. So they objected to it that no, there should not be special rights to these communities. Now, if we just go through the preamble of this charter, this is just that what type of problems have been addressed in making this charter of rights, which is now virtually an international law in a way. And so well, it recalls the principles claimed in the Charter of United Nations, which recognize the inherent dignity and worth and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family as the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. So they say that it is founded, its foundation is over there. So then another very important development which took place, and it is interestingly, this was a Vienna conference of human rights. My organization, Association for Democratic Rights, also from Punjab, was invited. We said we don't have the money to reach there, but we sent a proposition. And interestingly, India was represented in that conference, Vienna conference, human rights conference, by Dr. Manmohan Singh. And we suggested that if human rights are to be ensured, the right to development must be ensured. It is only by ensuring the right to development that could be given. I don't know, we were party to that, but later on, Vienna conference adopted this the right to development is essential for ensuring human rights. So this right to development is now, this again declare, this covenant or this declaration, that the right to development is an inalienable human right by virtue of which every human person and all persons are entitled to participate in, contribute to, and enjoy economic, social, cultural, and political developments in which all human rights and fundamental freedoms can be fully realized. So that was the principle which is adopted. So then it has a special relationship, that there is a special relationship and interaction between peasants and other people working in the rural areas, the land, water, and nature to which they are attached, uh, they depend for their livelihood. That you cannot just separate one of them; they are interdependent uh, as in a special relationship. This was recognized. Then they also recognized that the past, present, and future contribution of peasants and other peoples working in rural area in all regions of the world to development and to conservation and improvement of biodiversity constitute the basis of food and agriculture production throughout the world. And their contribution in ensuring the right to adequate food and food security, which are fundamental to attaining the internationally agreed development goals, which includes the agenda for sustainable development. So that is why it is important to give them a special charter of rights. So there was some basic concepts underlying there also. That's the suffer. Well, these people, peasants and the rural communities, they suffer disproportionately from poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. They suffer from the burden caused by environmental degradation and climate change. Above all, the uh, peasants aging around the world and youth increasingly migrating and turning their backs on agriculture owing to lack of incentive and drudgery of rural life is a concern. It also recognizes the need to improve the economic diversification of rural areas and creation of non-farm opportunities, especially for rural youth. So it has a response to some alarmed conditions also. They say that, well, this has to be brought because of increasing number of peasants and other people working in the rural area, forcibly, forcibly being evicted or displaced every year, and by the high incidence of suicide of the peasants in several countries. So this also became a matter of international concern or human rights concern that we should address to these problems. The charter further emphasizes the woman's position and women rights. The peasant woman and other rural working uh, women rural play a significant role in the economic survival of their families. They contribute to the rural and national economy, including through their work, which is non-monetized sector of the economy, because sometimes they are paying, but they are not being compensated monetarily, but are often denied tenure and ownership of land, equal access to land, productive resources, financial services, information, employment, or social protection, and are often victim of violence and discrimination in a variety of forms and manifestation. That is why it must ensure the women rights. There is another interesting is about the children, the concern about the children. So that importance of promoting and protecting the rights of the child in the rural area, which include the eradication of poverty, hunger, and malnutrition, which also include the promotion of quality education and health, protecting them from exposure to chemicals and waste, the elimination of child labor in accordance with the relevant other human right obligations. So this is now, this one point is further emphasized that why this should be covered in the declaration is the difficulty in making their voice heard. It says several factors make it difficult for peasants and other people working in rural areas, including small scale uh, fishermen and fish workers, pastoralists, the foresters, and other local communities to make their voice heard. So a mechanism must be introduced by which they can make their voice heard. To defend what for voice is to defend their human rights and tenure rights and to secure the sustainable use of natural resources on which they depend. For access to land, use, water, seeds, and other natural resources in an increasing challenge for rural people and stressing the importance of improving access to productive resources and investment in appropriate rural development. The chart also supports that in their effort to promote and undertake sustainable practices of agriculture production that support and are in harmony with nature, also referred to as Mother Earth in number of the countries and regions. Again, because again the hazardous and exploitative conditions that exist in many parts of the world under which many peasants and their people working in rural area have to work against the denial of the opportunity to exercise their fundamental rights at work and lacking living wages and social protection. So this also has to alleviate some concerns. That is, this is the background in which this draft was being presented, that about individuals, groups, and institutions that promote and protect the human rights of those working on the land and natural resources, issues face a high risk of being subjected to different forms of intimidation and of violation of their physical integrity, often face difficulties in gaining access to court, police officer, prosecution, lawyers to the extent that they are unable to seek immediate redress or protection for violence, abuse, and exploitation. And it's deeply concerned about is the speculation on food products because the increasing concentration and unbalanced distribution of food system and the uneven power relations along the value chain which impair the enjoyment of human rights. So it also uh, has that right to development. Well, it asserts that right to development is inalienable human right by virtue of which every human person and all persons are entitled to participate in, contribute to, and enjoy economic, social, cultural, and political development in which all human rights and fundamental freedoms can be fully realized. The right of the people to exercise full and complete sovereignty over all their natural wealth and resources. This is the concept of food sovereignty. The importance of respecting the diversity of cultures and promoting tolerance, dialogue, and cooperation. It is also asserting that this declaration and relevant international agreements should be mutually supportive with a view to enhancing the protection of human rights. The need for greater protection of human rights of peasants and other people working in the rural area and for a coherent interpretation and application of the existing international human rights and norms and standards. So, with these commitments, the declaration is made. It has a different articles, and particularly this is a summary of those articles. That Article 1 to 27, 28 is the general provisions, which gives that right. And as we knew that UN support to the peasants movement came, and that was because of his recognition that by for making their voice listened, they have the right to peaceful demonstration. And so this and the Article 3 particularly deals with the equality, the and non-discrimination among peasants and other people working in the rural area. Article 4 is a major role of the woman in, and they also say it is a zero discrimination against women and sound gender balance and women participation and involvement at all levels. The Article 5 and 18 is a right to the nature. It focuses on the right to peasants to access rural resources, including genetic resources, and to enjoy the means of for development, and in particular, sustainable development. Article 18 says that complements it by granting the specific rights to a clean, safe, and healthy environment for all people working and living in rural areas. Similarly, Article 6, 7, 8, 9 is about liberties and civil rights and political rights. Article 10, 11, and 12 focuses on the right to participation, right to information, and right to justice. And this particularly makes it that government, while has to act as a uh, uh, safeguard for the peasants from corporates and others, that is enshrined in these rights. Similarly, the 13, 14, and 16 are about labor rights. The 13 and 14 address the right to work and right to work in a safe and healthy environment with appropriate labor conditions. And Article 6 is complementary and focuses on the right to a decent income, on the right to choose and maintain one's livelihood and means of production chosen. So this is actually important. The one of the debate which today is taking place is that how to ensure a decent income, and this Article 16 actually delineates that the control on the corporate and that is non-state actor they call it, is the government has a responsibility to control them and provide such facilities where a decent income can be provided to the rural peoples. The food sovereignty is covered in Article 15, that peasant movement through years have the right to food, food security and food sovereignty, right to land. Article 19 is right to seeds. Uh, sorry. And then Article 20 is right to biodiversity, and right to water and clean water systems is also enshrined in that. So Article 22 and 23 is right to health and social security. This is a right to everybody to enjoy the highest attainable standards of physical and mental health. Right to health is enshrined in it and includes specific elements such as a reference to traditional medicines. Because so similarly, right to housing, and Article 25 is ensuring free education to the children in the rural areas. This is right to education. And 26th is the cultural rights, traditional knowledge, and traditional culture expressions. The article focuses on socio-cultural aspects in particular with the traditional knowledge and traditional culture heritage. So this was just the presentation. Uh, and I think it's important that some of those could be further stated. Uh, like article, because sub-article 2.3 says the declaration of speaks about an inclusive process of decision making by engaging in a dialogue with farmers and their representative institutions to ensure an informed participation and to ensure that the interests of the farmers are better served. Well, this is particularly there. Similarly, the protection against the exploitation of the corporate, Article 5 states that all necessary measures to ensure that non-state actors, that they are in a position to regulate, such as private individuals and organizations and transnational corporations and other business enterprises, respect and strengthen the right of peasants and other people working in rural areas. Similarly, Article 3 stresses upon ensuring that farmers enjoy all human rights, including fundamental freedoms recognized in this charter and other declarations of the United Nations. Particularly 3.2 speaks about the farmer's right to development, as we have discussed earlier. Article 6 seeks to protect farmers from arbitrary arrest, detention, torture, and others. So, some of the natural demands of the farmers are very well covered in this. That if the government, which is signatory to it, brings it the legal power, so I think many of those problems are covered by implementation of this. Now, particularly like uh, a property measure, this is 16.2 article, which declares that the states are obliged to take measures to favor peasants for selling their products in market. Well, it is interesting reading. Well, it reads, the state shall take appropriate measure to favor the access of the peasants and other people working in rural area to the means of transportation, processing, drying and storage facilities necessary for selling their product on local, national and regional markets at price that guarantee them a decent income and livelihood. So the problem which the peasants are now raising are being, this is a universal problem and this is addressed in this one. The next part says that state shall take appropriate measures to strengthen and support local, national and regional markets in the way that facilitates and ensures that peasants and other people working in rural area have full and equitable access and participation in these markets to sell their products at prices that allow them and their families to attain a adequate standard of living. So it is a state responsibility to create those conditions, which now particularly with these bills, which are now the state is trying to withdraw itself of providing that. So no, so these are some of the important, and it looks like that this should, when the demand of the peasants was that parliament should be called, I think we can forward this, that this declaration should be disc and adopted so that it gets a legal status, and those issues which are being raised by the farmers can be better taken care. Uh, so that was that the social justice issue, which has been accepted, is that can be covered through this, and just to reiterate that at the same time when the Human Rights Charter was being finalized, our constitution was being finalized, and in the constitution also the justice clause, well, is a social justice, justice in political, economic, and social to be provided or to be had by the citizen is parallel with that. But as was pointed out by Anilji, that, and this is my point also, that the the directive principles should be, it can only be enforced through people. The policy matters had to be ensured by the people. And at a juncture when our parliament has been made a mockery of the democratic procedures, this is the only solution left with the people, that they uh, exert and get the justice and their concerns uh, taken care. But that is, I think, which I wanted to draw the attention, that maybe we can better focus on this declaration of the peasants and rural workers' rights will make it that moving towards social justice, which is a broader issue, can be discovered. So I think that was which I intended to draw attention to, and now we can discuss about it any points. But before that, Ramamurthy will give you a Hindi version of my presentation.
गुड इवनिंग, जिंदाबाद एंड लाल सलाम। आशा है मेरी आवाज आ रही होगी। सबसे पहले तो मैं आप सबको अपनी और हमारी समूचे अभाष्यम की तरफ से आज मानवीय अधिकार दिवस के उपलक्ष्य में बहुत बहुत मुबारक देता हूं और ये कामना करता हूं कि हम सामाजिक न्याय के संघर्ष में लगातार संघर्षरत रहेंगे और इसे हासिल करके रहेंगे। उसके साथ दूसरा, मैं हम सब की तरफ से उन आंदोलनरत किसानों को सलाम पेश करता हूं जो हर तरह की कठिनाइयों को सहते हुए अपने इस दृढ़ निश्चय पे कायम है कि हम इन 3 कानूनों को वापस करवाने के अलावा किसी इससे कम किसी बात पे नहीं मानेंगे। तो उनकी हर तरह की कुर्बानियों को हम सब सलाम करते हैं। इसके बाद प्रोफेसर जगमोहन जी ने जो आज हमें बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय से अवगत कराया और उन्होंने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बिंदुओं से हमारा परिचय कराया, उसका मुख्य मंतव्य यही था कि किस तरह से जो ग्रामीण किसान, छोटे किसान या मजदूर हैं और जो दूसरे जो लोग हैं जो प्राकृतिक संसाधनों के आधार पर काम कर रहे हैं, उनके जो अधिकार हैं उनको किस तरह से संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ के घोषणा पत्र में एक आधिकारिक रूप से 2018 के संयुक्त राष्ट्र की घोषणा में शामिल किया गया है और उन्हें हमें जो है स्वीकार करवाने के लिए जो है संघर्ष करना चाहिए। आपने ऐतिहासिक परिप्रेक्ष्य बताते हुए पहले सामान्य मानवीय अधिकारों के विकास के साथ जोड़ते हुए इस बात की तरफ इशारा किया कि किस तरह से पहले विश्व युद्ध के बाद जब नाजीवाद और फासीवाद का उभार होता है और नाजीवाद को राष्ट्रीय समाजवाद के रूप में कह के हिटलर और उसकी पार्टी द्वारा लोगों को भ्रमित भी किया जाता है, उसके बाद जो लोगों का असाधारण शोषण हुआ, हत्याएं हुई, लोगों पे तरह तरह के अत्याचार हुए, उसके बाद इस विचार के ऊपर चर्चा होने लगी कि हर एक व्यक्ति को केवल अपने शासन का दास बनकर ना रहने दिया जाए, उसे कुछ सार्वभौमिक अधिकार दिए जाने चाहिए और ऐसी कुछ व्यवस्था की जानी चाहिए जिसके द्वारा सभी को सार्वभौमिक रूप से अधिकार प्राप्त हों जिनकी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे मान्यता हो। इसी संदर्भ में आगे जाके 1948 के ह्यूमन राइट जो मानवीय अधिकार घोषणा पत्र है उसका विकास होता है जिसे 1948 में माना जाता है। आपने इस बात की ओर विशेष रूप से उल्लेख किया कि जिस तरह से सामाजिक न्याय का सिद्धांत मानव अधिकार घोषणा पत्र में शामिल किया गया, उसी तरह से भारत के संविधान में भी प्रस्तावना में लेकर और अन्य विभिन्न प्रावधानों में सामाजिक, राजनीतिक और आर्थिक न्याय की विशेष रूप से बात की गई और जो संविधान का चौथा भाग है विशेष रूप से राज्य के नीति निर्देशक सिद्धांतों का, उसको उसमें शामिल करना मुख्य रूप से सामाजिक न्याय के कुछ बिंदुओं की तरफ राज्य को प्रेरित, राज्य को अग्रसर करना था कि वे इन को लागू करे। 1948 में जब ये मानवाधिकार सामान्य रूप से बना, उसके बाद विशेष रूप से इस बात पे जोर दिया जाने लगा जिसमें लैटिनी अमेरिका के संघर्षों का महत्वपूर्ण योगदान है कि ग्रामीण किसानों, मजदूरों और अन्य कामों में लगे लोगों के अधिकारों की किस तरह से सुरक्षा की जाए। तो आपने बताया कि ये संघर्ष मुख्य रूप से लैटिनी अमेरिका में शुरू ने अपनी हमने देखा कि किस तरह से जो है लोगों का बर्बर दमन किया गया और लोगों ने एक लैटिनी अमेरिका के स्तर पे इस बात की ओर जोर आंदोलन खड़ा किया कि हम मानवीय अधिकारों या जो ग्रामीण इलाकों के लोग हैं, जो ग्रामीण आजीविकाओं पर निर्भर हैं, इनके अधिकारों की बात करें। इसी आंदोलन की वजह से इसको साथ जोड़ते हुए उस समय 1993 में यूनेस्को की एक बयाना कॉन्फ्रेंस होती है, जिसमें पंजाब अखिल भारतीय डेमोक्रेटिक राइट जमहूरी अधिकार सभा पंजाब की तरफ से यह रखा गया जो प्रस्ताव था कि विकास को अधिकार के रूप में शामिल किया जाना चाहिए। इसे सैद्धांतिक रूप से स्वीकार किया गया। आपने बताया कि आमंत्रण के बावजूद आर्थिक तंगी की वजह से हमारा जमहूरी अधिकार सभा का प्रतिनिधिमंडल तो नहीं जा सका, लेकिन हमारी बात को हमने वहां पे लिखित रूप में पेश किया गया। ये कहना मुश्किल है कि कितना उसका प्रभाव था, लेकिन अंततः इसे एक सिद्धांत के रूप में स्वीकार किया गया। फिर आप बात करते हैं विस्तार से कि 2018 में जो ये प्रस्ताव जो ग्रामीण किसानों मजदूरों के अधिकारों का चार्टर संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ ने पास किया, इसके विस्तार में जाते हुए आप बताते हैं कि इसकी प्रस्तावना में मुख्य रूप से इस बात की ओर जोर दिया गया है कि जिस तरह से मानव अधिकारों की संकल्पना है, उसी तरह से ग्रामीण परिवेश से जुड़ी आजीविकाओं पर आधारित लोगों की अधिकारों के ऊपर भी इसी तरह की प्रस्तावना को लागू किया जाए। मसलन ये अधिकार अभिन्न है, ये अधिकार अविभाज्य हैं, ये अधिकार एक दूसरे के निर्भर हैं, एक दूसरे के ऊपर निर्भर हैं, और इन अधिकारों को किसी भी रूप में कोई भी राज्य जो है खारिज नहीं कर सकता। इसके बाद आपने विस्तार से इस बात को समझाया कि इस अधिकार के जो कुल मिलाकर 28 अनुच्छेद हैं या आर्टिकल हैं, उनके विस्तार से अगर हम अध्ययन करते हैं तो मुख्य रूप से वो इन बिंदुओं की तरफ इशारा करते हैं। सबसे पहले तो ये बात करते हैं कि ये मानव अधिकारों की जो घोषणा है या ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों पे जो अधिकार हैं, उनका जल जंगल जमीन और प्राकृतिक संसाधनों के ऊपर अधिकार है, उन्हें किसी भी परिस्थिति में वंचित नहीं किया जाना चाहिए और उन्हें हर तरह की सुरक्षा दी जानी चाहिए। फिर उसके बाद ये बात करते हैं कि इन अधिकारों के अंतर्गत विशेष रूप से अनुच्छेद 4 में महिलाओं के अधिकारों की बात की गई है और ये कहा गया है कि महिलाओं को जो है उनको अपनी मलकियतों पे, अपनी जमीनों जायदादों पे न केवल मालिकाना हक दिया जाए, बल्कि कृषि या अन्य ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के उन कार्यों में जिनमें वे कार्यरत हैं, उनमें उनकी भूमिकाओं को स्वीकार करते हुए उन्हें समान मजदूरी या जो महत्वपूर्ण मजदूरी है वो दी जाए और किसी भी तरह से उनके साथ जो है वो भेदभाव न किया जाए। और ये जीरो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन या शून्य भेदभाव की बात करता है। उसी तरह से जो इस चार्टर के अनुच्छेद 2.3 और 3.2 हैं, वो विशेष रूप से इस बात के ऊपर जोर देते हैं कि जो किसान हैं या मजदूर हैं जो ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में कार्यरत हैं, उनको कारपोरेट जो हैं, बड़े बड़े निगम हैं, उनके संदर्भ में संरक्षण दिया जाना चाहिए और ऐसे उपाय किए जाने चाहिए कि वे इनके ऊपर अनावश्यक दबाव डाल के इनकी संपत्तियों के ऊपर अपना कब्जा ना करें या उन्हें अनाधिकृत रूप से बेदखल ना करें। फिर अनुच्छेद इसके 6 से 9 के जो अनुच्छेद हैं वो मुख्य रूप से सिविल राइट या जो एक तरह के सामान्य अधिकार व स्वतंत्रताएं हैं उनकी बात करते हैं और 11-12 जो है उनकी सभी राजनीतिक कार्यों और जो अन्य जो नेगोशिएशन के कार्य हैं उनमें समान भागीदारी की बात करते हैं। अनुच्छेद 13 और 14 विशेष रूप से मजदूरी संबंधी जो अनिवार्यताएं हैं उनकी बात करते हुए कहते हैं कि उन्हें मजदूरी पूरी तरह से दी जानी चाहिए और उनकी किसी भी मजदूरी के हक को जो है वो हनन उसका ना किया जाए। फिर 15 और 16 विशेष रूप से उल्लेखनीय है, जिसमें ये विशेष रूप से बात करते हैं कि राज्य की यह सीधी जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि वह यह सुनिश्चित करे कि उनके ग्रामीण लोगों के ऊपर, ग्रामीण किसानों मजदूरों के ऊपर किसी तरह का अनावश्यक दबाव डाल के उनके हितों के खिलाफ कोई भी मेहनताना मजदूरी, रोजगार या इस तरह के उनके ऊपर दबाव डाल के उनके उपजों को कम दामों पे ना बेचा जा सके, जिसमें न्यूनतम मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस भी एक तरह से सुनिश्चित है। कहने का आशय यह है कि इसकी ये अश्योरेंस इसमें दिया गया है कि किसानों को ये पूरा हक दिया जाना चाहिए कि वे जो उचित दाम पे उनकी उपजें हैं उनको बेची जाए, और राज्य को इससे फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए, इसमें सुविधा प्रदान करने के लिए हर तरह की मदद करनी चाहिए, जिसमें उन्हें सही ढंग से बाजार उपलब्ध कराना और उनको हर तरह के दबावों से सुरक्षा प्रदान करना है। फिर उन्होंने बताया कि इसमें ये भी अधिकार है कि जो किसान या ग्रामीण परिवेश में काम करने वाले लोग अपने आप को ज्यादा कानूनी या राजनीतिक या पुलिस का संरक्षण हासिल नहीं कर सकते, उन्हें आवश्यकता पड़ने पर हिंसा से बचाना चाहिए, उन पर होने वाले अनावश्यक अत्याचारों को रोकने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए, पूरी तरह से पुलिस को उनकी सुरक्षा करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए। राज्य की जिम्मेदारी है, कोई उसके ऊपर, राज्य जो है इनके ऊपर एहसान नहीं कर रहा, और इस बात का इंश्योर किया जाना चाहिए कि जो वो जिस तरीके से अपने उपजों को बेचना चाहते हैं वो बेचे। अंत में वो 3-4 और अधिकारों की विशेष रूप से बात करते हैं, जिसमें सामाजिक सुरक्षा और स्वास्थ्य, जिसमें ट्रेडिशनल जो पारंपरिक मेडिसिन है उनकी उपलब्धता की बात करते हैं, और उनके जो सांस्कृतिक अधिकार हैं उनकी बात भी करते हैं कि ये उसमें इस जो संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ की 2018 की घोषणा है उनमें यहाँ तक की सुरक्षाएं दी गई हैं। फिर इसमें उन्होंने विशेष रूप से ये उल्लेख किया कि जो ग्रामीण संसाधनों की कमी की वजह से ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों की कुछ खास जो हैं वो परेशानियां हैं, कुपोषण है, भूख से सुरक्षा है, या खाद्य पर प्रभुत्व है, इनको वास्तव में राज्य को लोगों के लिए संरक्षित करना चाहिए, और उनको ये राज्य की जिम्मेदारी है कि इन चीजों को राज्य उनके लिए संघर्षित करे। अंत में आपने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बात ये कही कि आज के संघर्ष से जोड़ के हम इसको इस तरह से देखें कि यदि इस किसानों को ये मांग करनी चाहिए, हम सबको ये मांग करनी चाहिए कि भारत की सरकार, भारत की संसद अगर सच में लोगों के प्रति ईमानदार है, किसानों के प्रति ईमानदार है, या सोचती है किसानों की बात सुननी है, तो वो इस घोषणा पत्र को ही क्यों ना एक कानूनी अधिनियम का रूप दे दे, और इसमें जो जिस तरह की सुरक्षा या जिस तरह की गारंटी दी गई है, जिस तरह के अधिकारों की बात की गई है, उन अधिकारों को एक कानून बना के प्रदान कर दे, जिससे शायद किसानों की जो वर्तमान सारी मांगे हैं वो भी पूरी होंगी, और किसानों के जो इस सरकार के संबंध में खदशात हैं या जो उनके शको शुबे हैं वो भी दूर हो जाएंगे। तो आपका ये मानना है कि ये जो यूएन का 2018 का ये घोषणा पत्र है, ये एक तरह का ग्रामीण किसानों, मजदूरों, महिलाओं, बच्चों के अधिकारों की जिसमें विशेष रूप से बात की गई है, उनके लिए एक तरह का ये सामाजिक न्याय का घोषणा पत्र है, और इस सामाजिक न्याय के घोषणा पत्र को सही शब्दों में या सही अर्थों में लागू कराने के लिए हम सबको संघर्ष का हिस्सा बनना चाहिए, और उस संघर्ष में सबको जो है अपनी महती भूमिका जो है निभानी चाहिए। कोई अपनी खुशी के लिए गैर की रोटियां छीन ले हम नहीं चाहते, छीट कर थोड़ा चारा एक उम्र की हर खुशी बीन ले हम नहीं चाहते, आत्मा में टंगी हो ना खुशहालियां, कैद महलों में सब की कमाई न हो, इसलिए राह संघर्ष की हम चुने, जिंदगी आंसुओं में नहाई न हो, शाम सहमी न हो, रात हो न डरी, शाम सहमी न हो, रात हो न डरी, भोर की आंख फिर डबडबाई न हो, इसलिए इनकलाब जिंदाबाद, लाल सलाम।
थैंक यू राम मूर्ति जी, आपने बहुत बढ़िया हाँ जी, Shashank. We can have discussion or some issues which we can think around it. You're welcome to participate in the discussion, please.
Sir, I think this contradiction between the farming community and corporate,
Ji,
I think has become almost a structural crisis. Now, the
definitely.
present government has a very serious problem because it is considered and it considers itself as a corporate government, fully committed to corporate. So, withdrawing these three bills is very easy. After all, when such a massive demand is there, even in their electoral interest, they can withdraw. But that will send a wrong message to the corporate that this government is buckling down or under pressure withdrawing, because this government wants to say that they're so firmly committed. That is part of the power structure, the way it unfolded itself. And I think all over the world, the pro-corporate governments and the peasant struggles, I think this has become a pattern. So because I have been seeing that why the government doesn't want to budge an inch is that any concession to the farmer will give a message to the corporate that they are pro-corporate. I think that perhaps is one of the reasons why the farmers' crisis, although United Nations has guaranteed, as you very rightly said, but then I think this is the part. I don't know how you reflect or react to this unfolding experience.
Professor Hargopal, you are very right. And I think that reminds us of Mussolini's definition of fascism also, that when the corporate interest and the government interest, that is, and you are very right, they or particularly, well, this sentence of Prime Minister, that till the poor and the middle class is with me, I don't worry. So that is what my point is, that because this instrument is there, the debate can be brought to that point, that this is not only that you have, well, India is signatory just in 2018, it has signed it, that can the debate can be brought to the particular issues within that you are, it is responsibility to provide protection against exploitation of corporate and others.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, well, the attitude as it looks like is more confrontational. And you're right, even Shekhar Gupta, one of their proponent, was saying that it is a Thatcher movement versus Anna movement. The Thatcher movement was that she suppressed all kind of unions and others and pushed the neoliberalism ahead. And he was suggesting that he must act like that. But to me, well, the interesting thing which looks like is that we were just talking about the peoples around it, that the reality they have started correlating with the issues, particularly, well, even our women from Punjab could correlate that the policy of uh, demonetization was taking away their savings. So that one is that this movement will make people understand that their cause of their problem is, and that is understood that it is a corporate.
Right.
And it very interestingly happened that when the farmers didn't allow Adani's goods train carrying grains from Punjab, they didn't allow that. They virtually blocked the whole of Punjab. No train will come, no supply will be there. So you are very right. They are very true to their master corporates, and these Adani Avanis look to me is just the servants of the international corporates. Like the Geo has got the best investment from Google after this internet utilization or online classes and other things have increased. They are investing, they make a ground for that. You're right, but it has to be. My only thing was that if in propaganda that we were discussing with them also, that this could be brought on annual, that these protections are provided here should be translated into illegal, though they will not.
Yeah, yeah.
They will testing them.
I think that this whole idea of neoliberalism in this space, and you see it so clearly through these reform bills of agriculture. is
मतलब
that
थोड़ा आवाज आपकी
can you, that you cannot, they do not want the independent agrarian producer to survive as a social category. This person should, this peasant who is an independent producer, capitalism has been trying right from the beginning. First they kill them in order to, they finish them in order to push them into the factories as workers. And this is the
Manmohan ji, Jagmohan ji, can I make a point?
Sure, sir. You have
I get reminded of our emergency period. Indira Gandhi imposed emergency. And that seemed to be the last straw on the ability of the society to put up with. The society rejected emergency through a strong movement. And Modi is also taking measure after measure for the last 6 years. But this is such a big measure. It seems Indian society is not yet made ready by the rulers. People are not ready to just digest this measure. So I believe as Indira Gandhi was to take back emergency, Narendra Modi will also be taking back these bills.
no, sir. Ramesh ji, he blames you that in Hyderabad you have given him so much of power. He said that you are with me in Rajasthan. So it is not Indira Gandhi movements. Please let us be very clear.
and Indira Gandhi also.
Rajasthan, the panchayats, he has been able to carry, and that is why that statement that till the poor and the middle class is with me, I don't bother. Well, he is in a big denial mood, but to convert that, how much effort, because the determination which is being shown by Haryana and Punjab farmers is definitely incredible.
Yeah.
How do the other states, Shishant was sharing some of his, that in Karnataka, they are trying to make some other rules which will indirectly affect the farmers, but more of a religious like cow or something like that. So
जगमोहन जी,
जी
मुझे ऐसा लग रहा कि हम लोगों ने मोदी को, without going into the details of the laws which the farmers are doing anyways, we all should confront him by saying that if you are damn sure that your laws are good, why the hell you bypass the system? Why did you try to bring them in the pandemic in such a hurry without consultation and bypassing all the federal structure? And we should insist in our own states to the state governments to say that they were not consulted and they don't agree with the laws. That can be our strategy, so that the Modi is saying that all are with me gets diluted. That from different states, this kind of voice should come out. What the rest of you think about it?
Swaji, you are right. There need to be more coordinated, but the understanding of the peasantry about this marketing and particularly handing over the market to the that is becoming clearer. But how do other states respond? And particularly now the division is the BJP ruled states and the non-BJP ruled states. Non-BJP ruled states are supporting, like Punjab had to surrender to the farmers because this is a strong one.
Yeah.
So, but what you're saying is even in case of our national education policy has bypassed everything.
Exactly. That is what meaning. We are having a protest in support of farmers here.
That is why
as
my
Kisan.
point is that this international instrument.
No, that is what I'm saying. And we are trying to bring this. Education policy is another example that this is the way the government is trying to impose things. And that is why we all consumers, everyone should oppose him. Beyond the intricacies in the law, that this your autocratic system is what we are rejecting. That probably will pick up faster.
And particularly to Rameshji, let us also remember that in emergency, one of the things which concerned everyone was forceful that they virtually had put the Nasbandi, was forced Nasbandi, which actually created more reaction to emergency than other things. So, but we can definitely.
Sir, but the national Bandh, All India Bandh was essentially successful because Telugu newspapers, daily newspapers here reported that it is successful. All India Bandh is successful. And we have got very reactionary newspapers which never say a Bandh is successful. And Andhra Pradesh government, Jagan government also supported Bandh. I believe somewhere a section of the capital is behind different political parties, including YSR Jagan party, that there is a signal to the opposition political parties. And that is why 22 parties have come forward to oppose the bills, acts, and supported the Bandh. Do you see such a possibility that a section of the monopoly capital is supporting the movement now against Adani, Ambani combined?
Well, we have to see how good indicators are there. But one thing is definite, that those who are not getting benefited out of it would like to put the weight. But as far as the 12th and 14th, they will be having some further mass action at the All India level. How do things go? Modi and his party would like to weigh them, and he is weighing how much strength you have to. Tomorrow he can make it that the Delhi citizens versus the farmers.
Sir, am I audible?
Ramurthy.
Hello, मेरी आवाज आ रही है? I am to make sure one. I have two small questions and one first comment. Actually, while translating it to Hindi, I do apologize that I forget to translate one important part, which says कि basically ये जो संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ का घोषणा पत्र है, ये केवल जो खेती किसानी से जुड़े हुए ग्रामीण पृष्ठभूमि के काम करने वाले लोग हैं उनकी बात ही नहीं करता, बल्कि उसके साथ साथ जो छोटे छोटे मछुआरे हैं, आदिवासी है, जमीन की जंगल की उपजों के ऊपर निर्भर हैं, और जो और भी बहुत छोटे छोटे कामगार हैं, उनकी बात करता है, जिसका सर ने अंग्रेजी की प्रेजेंटेशन में विस्तार से जिक्र किया है। तो ये सारे जिन अधिकारों की हमने बात की वो उनके संदर्भ में भी बात करता है, जिसमें गरिमा और बराबरी की एक मुख्य बात है जो महत्वपूर्ण रूप से उल्लेखनीय है। Having said so, I have one pertinent two question. One is don't you see it contradictory on the part of UNO itself, the kind of understanding we have about the basic structure of UNO, let us say World Bank, International Monetary Fund, even UNESCO, and so on and so forth. How come UNO, which is largely controlled by these international organization and the wealthy country, how come this organization is ready to adopt that kind of declaration, which at least off the face seems quite pro people? मतलब कम से कम ऊपर से वो प्रो पीपल तो डेफिनेटली लगती है। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि ये कोई इसमें कोई विरोधाभास है कि वो उसके लिए कैसे तैयार हो गया?
देखिए राममूर्ति जी, first of all, World Bank and IMF is part of the UN institutions. UNESCO, UNDP, they are. And they are influenced wherever there is a money. America tries to manipulate them by all means. That is, we know it. But at the same time, when so many countries, the peoples from that countries, or particularly Latin American peoples, when the power was with them, they brought this on the agenda. And you will find it between the corporate interest and the people's interest in these documents. So once it is adopted, and that's my point is that can we make it as the international instrument which can be applied or at least be brought on the anvil, that let them say they don't want to it. So this understanding has been there that these are manipulated, but at the same time they definitely work in the interest of the corporate also, because when the corporate money is borrowed, like WHO has to struggle between the corporate money and other countries' money. My understanding is that we have to take it, whatever good comes out of churning. And this is not that they immediately adopted it. There has been constant about 10 years of debate. And then this has filtered out.
Right.
Professor Jagmohan, can I raise
Yeah,
some?
sure, we can discuss, sir.
One is that I remember when the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was being adopted, and I understand the difference between the convention and the charter to a certain extent. So one of the debates was that it should be treated as a convention, not simply as a charter. So first question is, I mean, whether any such debate came up, because that would have given it a higher pedestal. The second is about the involvement of of the peasants in the promulgation of this charter itself. So do we have some information whether even these people working in the rural areas were made to participate in the deliberations of the formulation of this charter? Is the second. And the third is, so is there any mechanism which is set up by the UN to see the implementation on a regular basis of this charter in the countries which have adopted it?
Because it comes under that human right monitoring, because it is under the Human Rights Council that this has been adopted. Number one, there has been a lot of participation and formulation by these peasant and rural workers, particularly Brazilian group, which is MAS, with the without properties in the rural area, something like that. So it actually, this has come out with that discussion, and they raised this point that the Human Rights Charter, how do you apply it to our conditions? And these are our conditions. That is why I wanted to share that part of it in the preamble where they delineated that. So one is that they have been part of the discussion, as I could find out. Uh, the second part is like on the Human Rights Charter also, it is only the annual meeting which is held, and then the commission raises or they have to respond to that. Like on human rights also, uh, well, if there are issues, that even if these issues go to them, they will only ask the government to correspond respond to it. That's my understanding. But it definitely, now let me add one point here, that those countries which opposed its adoption, you know who are they?
Yeah, you mentioned. Yeah.
They are the food exporting company. So that means it is those who want to exploit the rural area or destroy it and bring their business. I was astonished to find that.
But India has been also now, I mean, exporting food
No, no,
more than
that is
ever before. So does it not something that, I mean, violates this?
well, that can be raised, because even this adoption of that essential food items bill itself is a violative. Because, but it also was that there is 5,000 crores of export that has been made during this. The nutrition is the issue, and I think that could also be, the issues could be brought.
Ragmanji, can I ask a question?
Sir,
Yeah.
not sure, sure,
Yeah,
Indrajit.
Jagmanji, is government mandated to report on the, implementation of this, UN Charter? And that is number one. And two, if the government is mandated to report, is there any other alternate organization who's also reporting? Thank you.
Uh, as is that even as I understand about the human right process, that the question can be sent to them and then they ask the government to respond, and there is a annual report, there is a human rights commission which deals with that. So I think government has, they may avoid it, or they, but they definitely had to answer it over there. So
So it's like, Ragmanji, like it was CEDAW, for example, for the women's rights, the government is mandated to give reports yearly, or 3 years, I
no,
think.
but
Yearly or
human
three
rights
years, I'm
also, and
confused.
this is now part of the, no, one is that government response, and like on the human right, they have to, and that is why they have even to assure them that how much propagation of understanding of the human right has been done. That is why
Okay.
every college, you send the reports, they respond to that, and this is also covered under that. So we can make it that this should also be responded, and it should be put into that educative process. But my question is that why not to first adopt it as a law, some part of it? We can raise that issue, though
Yes.
it is a dialectic process of raising your argument, that in either way, either they will, if they refuse, they will expose themselves. If they adopt it, you have.
Yeah.
Inderjeet
हाँ
wanted to
जी
say something.
हाँ जी
Inderjeet,
सर मैं 2 क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहती हूँ
जी,
सर जो इसमें मतलब आर्टिकल 6 है जैसे उसमें है कि किसानों पर ऐसे वो पुलिस उनके साथ ऐसे नहीं कर सकती, उनको अरेस्ट नहीं किया जा सकता, उन पर जो टॉर्चर नहीं किया जा सकता या उनको सजा से वो उसकी राखी की गारंटी देता है ना। तो मतलब जैसे अब हरियाणा में इतने लोगों पे पर्चे हो गए हैं, किसी के 307 का, किसी के पे कोई, किसी पे कोई। तो मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन तो यही है, तो क्या कोर्ट में इस आर्टिकल के थ्रू चैलेंज किया जा सकता है उन सभी पर्चों को जो उन पे कर दिए गए हैं हरियाणा में?
अब इस पे मेरा ख्याल हरगोपाल जी हमें बेटर एडवाइस कर सकते हैं। राममूर्ति
राममूर्ति जी थोड़ा बंद कर दीजिए आप।
Mohan ji, I want to say something.
जी sure.
At some point.
Sure, Laltu ji.
Okay. Well, this question about why Human Rights Declaration came into being, I think we should not forget that the Second World War time period for Europe and USA was a time of crisis. I mean, they had just recovered from the depression of the 30s, and then there was the war, and definitely there was a threat that the movements all across Europe, the workers' movements were quite militant. And the war had also disturbed the social fabric in not only in Europe, also in USA. And that disturbance continued through 40s, 50s, and 60s. I mean, the charter first came into being. I mean, the draft was came into being before 1950, around 48, right? And then by the time it was finally accepted, there were all kinds of movements, even though the threat of the Soviet kind of communism had lessened because of the information that rightly or wrongly came about Stalin and etc. But there were other movements, for instance, the anti-Vietnam War movement, then the 60s movement in Europe. So the contradictions of Western capitalism definitely are there. I mean, it's exactly how it plays on to ensure that something like human rights charter comes into being is another issue. But definitely there was a crisis, if not a crisis of capitalist economy as in the 30s, at least the political structures in the capitalist countries were in a very serious crisis, and there was a serious threat that the entire structure could have been challenged. So I think that we should not forget. I mean, there is a power of the people that was behind it, even though it didn't translate into explicit statements in the United Nations bodies, but definitely that was there.
Laltuji, this is not denial to that there was conscious movement. That's why I say that even national health system, which came in England, was because of, but they're raising that question that you have spent so much on destruction. Why not on a health system? So it was not that it has just come out, but at the same time, the consciousness about the fascism and its effect. I mean, the human rights charter was at least that debated in the beginning. That's as I have not in detail, but limited. But you're right, there is a, but like the people's movement now is coming up and the reality was being reflected. And the Keynes economics came that the full employment generation is government responsibility. Well, that is where that social justice issues also came. And now UN also has adopted a charter on social justice also 2017. So you're right that there are movements and that radical movements. There was a danger, and you're right, because there was the crisis within USSR itself came up, or whatever is there. So I agree with you that people's movement definitely, that is why now also that once this peasants movement has come to be, that how do this virtually will raise a question and how it gets resolved. Well, is definitely that it is not just going to be, well, we in actually engineering, we have a concept of entropy, that whenever some change take place, it leaves some disorder or that disorder. So basically the people's movement definitely raise the question and the suppression. And I think if you have seen that Kardzu's suggestion was interesting. He said that you can keep these laws into as conditional, that they will not be notified, but after discussion they will be taken care. So both of you will be. Otherwise, if the power show is done, which may take place, that suppression will come, and that will be another movement like Jallianwala Bagh and others. So you're right. In the history, there were other forces also, and they exerted that the some welfare state concept virtually emerged out of that, which is not in a total. So we can analyze it at different. My point is uh, that if we understand it, because now we are dealing with fascism, and there are some counter instruments which at least challenge the fascist process. Can we use them, or can the people movement use those to check it, or at least like it is being said that it can add at least add some distaste to their taste of their taste. So my point is that, but you're
सर
yes sir.
मेरा एक और था,
जी
मतलब एक पॉइंट ही था वो भी।
जी
तो उसमें जैसे इसमें आर्टिकल 4 में है जो औरतों के राइट और औरतों की बराबरी की हिस्सेदारी की बात है। सर मेरा जैसे हमारा रीजन दोआबा है, तो हमारे इधर बहुत डाइवर्सिफाइड क्रॉपिंग है। जैसे हमारे इधर आलू और गाजर, इसकी खेती सब्जियों में ज्यादा होती है, तो उसमें इन्वॉल्वमेंट जो है वो फीमेल लेबर की ज्यादा है मैन के मुकाबले में। तो उसमें इवन हमारे इधर जितनी और मनरेगा में भी बहुत सारी औरतें इन्वॉल्व रहती हैं, लेकिन उसमें भी जो लेबर इन्वॉल्व रहती खेतों में, जैसे वो प्लांटर से उखाड़ देते हैं आलू और बाद में उनको चुनना बीनना जो भी है वो सारा है ना। और उसके बाद जो हमारे इधर गाजर का होता है उसमें भी सेम प्रोसेस चलता है। ऐसे मटर की तुड़वाई का काम चलता है, उसमें भी सेम प्रोसेस चलता है। तो अगर ऐसे कानून जो जे वाला कानून है, तो वो मतलब औरतें जिनके पास अपनी तो कोई लैंड होल्डिंग है ही नहीं, दे आर बेसिकली लेबरर ना, तो वो तो सबसे पहले इससे बाहर हो जाएंगे। तो मतलब उनका क्या होगा? और वो तो बहुत ज्यादा संख्या में है। मतलब जितनी औरतें मैंने गांव में देखा है, जो भी मतलब थोड़े से गरीब लोग हैं, उनमें से 90% जो औरतें हैं वो खेतों में काम करती हैं।
इंद्रजीत, ये जो डेक्लेरेशन है ये रिकॉग्नाइज करती है औरत की ये सारी पार्टिसिपेशन को, पर ये अभी कानून नहीं है
जी।
मतलब तभी हमें अगर सरकार को ये कहा जाए कि ये आपने माना हुआ है, इसको कानूनी शक्ल दीजिए, तो फिर आप वो मतलब उनके राइट्स को, अदरवाइज इसको लेके वो अपने राइट्स के लिए क्लेम कर सकती हैं। उनको प्रॉपर वेजेस मिलती हैं कि नहीं मिलती, मतलब वो सरकार की जिम्मेवारी है उनकी। और वाकई आपका है कि इवन अपने धान के रोपिंग में भी मतलब वुमेन लेबर काफी
उसमें भी बहुत ज्यादा है। एग्जैक्टली।
इसीलिए इसमें लिखा है कि एक तो है कि जिनको लेबर कॉस्ट मिल रही है, एक है नॉन मोनेटाइजेशन, जिनको मिलता कुछ नहीं है लेकिन वो कंट्रीब्यूट करती हैं, घर में लेके सारा बिल कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं, उनको कौन देता है। तो ये जो चार्टर है वो रिकॉग्नाइज करता है उसको, क्योंकि इस पे डिबेट हुई और वो लैटिन अमेरिकन जो उनकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन थी उन्होंने इस पे काफी एम्फसिस दिया कि वुमेन्स के राइट को सुरक्षित किया जाए। तो इसमें लिखत हो गए हैं
जी।
अब इनको लागू कैसे करना है, वो जैसे लाल साहब कह रहे थे, वो तो लोग ही करेंगे ना। अगर लोग चेतन होंगे, पहले तो उनको चेतनता दी जाए कि ये आपका हक जो है रिकॉग्नाइज्ड है कम से कम इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर, फिर उनकी जो वायलेशंस है उनकी रिपोर्ट हम मतलब जनरेट कर सकते हैं। क्योंकि अभी जो हो रहा है, एक और बहुत खतरनाक चीज जो हो रही है कि पूरा डाटा ही एलिमिनेट किया जा रहा है।
यस, एग्जैक्टली।
ताकि डाटा नहीं होगा तो आप सच्चाई किसकी बोलेंगे, वो अपनी सच्चाई सामने ला देंगे।
जी सर।
पूरे साइड पे डाटा खत्म हो रहा है, मतलब हर चीज पे कि अगर डाटा ही नहीं होगा तो आप किस चीज को सच कहेंगे।
जी
अभी
जी
फैब्रिकेटेड डाटे पे सारी बात होगी। तो इसलिए मुझे
एग्जैक्ट
लगता है कि हम जो लोग मतलब जमीनी सतह पे काम करने वाले, हम उसको रिकॉर्ड करना शुरू करें।
जी
जैसे आप के मतलब चाहे उसकी इंटरव्यू है, आप मतलब लें कि भी
जी
आप उनको क्या मतलब प्रॉब्लम है, क्या मिलता है, क्या कितना आवर्स वो काम करती हैं,
जी
तो दैट बिकम ए डॉक्यूमेंट जो कल को
यस
डिबेट का मतलब डिस्कशन का हिस्सा बन सकेगी।
जी सर, मतलब इसका आर्टिकल 4 तो है ही, मतलब उसके बारे में तो हम बात करेंगे, लेकिन जो इन्होंने 3 नए कानून लेके आए हैं उसमें अगर वो लागू हो जाते हैं तो फिर तो ये वाली औरत वाली लेबर तो टोटली एलिमिनेट हो जाएगी। तो और जो इनका कंसेप्ट है सिटीज में एज ए लेबर इनको शिफ्ट करो, तो औरतें कहाँ जाएंगी, शिफ्ट होएंगी सिटीज में? उनका बेस तो गाँव में है ना, वो तो सर्वाइव ही नहीं कर पाएंगी वहां जाकर।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, इसीलिए जो रूरल एरियाज के स्पेसिफिक राइट्स की बात हुई और ये डेक्लेरेशन निकली।
जी
और एक मैं आपको और बता दूं जो इंफॉर्मेशन है कि जो गिरदावरी होती है, द
जी
रिकॉर्ड ऑफ मतलब क्रॉप जो है,
जी
वो सारा डिजिटलाइज होने वाला है
ओके
सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की। उसका मतलब ये होगा कि किस फार्मर में क्या क्या मतलब क्रॉप लगाई है, वो
जी
सारी इंफॉर्मेशन कॉर्पोरेट को बेची जाएगी
हाँ एग्जैक्टली
और वो आपको सीधा सीधा बात करेगा। सो देर आर डेंजर्स, लेकिन हाउ टू इम्यूनाइज अस, जैसे हमने मतलब कोरोना के खिलाफ इम्यूनाइजेशन बिल्ड की है
जी
अपने तौर पे, तो
जी
वी हैव टू मतलब थिंक ऑफ सम वे ऑफ इम्यूनाइजिंग
जी
मतलब दिस अगेंस्ट दिस इंफॉर्मेशन। क्योंकि अभी जो फार्मर इकट्ठे हैं वो
जी
मंडी की वजह से इकट्ठे हैं,
एग्जैक्टली
क्योंकि मंडी की लड़ाइयां लड़ते लड़ते वो इतने मजबूत हो गए हैं।
जी
कभी
बिल्कुल
32 मैं अपने just for information of our other friends that why there are 32 farmer organizations in Punjab. The basic reason is that they have been fighting their local battle of the market, keeping regulated market, and that is why they feel that if that market is not there, people don't have a collective problem, so people will just be crushed out. And that is why this charter provides some protection against that type of decision making. So it is basically challenges the decision making process, which is being used now against that.
जगमोहन जी, मैं जस्ट
Sure, sir. Comments.
वो आप आई थिंक आपने ये राइट्स का सवाल बिल्कुल सही वक्त पे उठाया है, क्योंकि आज ही या वाज इट यस्टरडे नीति आयोग के चेयरमैन कह रहे हैं कि हिंदुस्तान में डेमोक्रेसी बहुत ज्यादा है।
अच्छा,
क्योंकि डेमोक्रेसी ज्यादा है इसलिए यहाँ रिफॉर्म्स लागू नहीं हो सकते।
well, over अच्छा,
This is not just anybody. This is Amol Khan, the chairperson of the नीति आयोग। तो हमने आई थिंक आपने बिल्कुल सही वक्त पे उठाया है ये सवाल राइट्स का, और हम लोगों को ये राइट्स ऑफ द फार्मिंग कम्युनिटी, राइट्स ऑफ द इंडिपेंडेंट प्रोड्यूसर, इसको उठाना, वेदर इट इज मेल और फीमेल। और ये जो सवाल इंद्रजीत ने उठाया है, मेनी वुमेन्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैव रेज्ड दिस इशू कि ये औरतों के लिए बहुत खतरनाक होगा ये मूव। तो उस तरह से हमें ये चीजों को बहुत जरूरी है कि हम अपने मूवमेंट्स में भी इनको आगे ले जाएं।
ठीक, very right, sir. जी, तो इंद्रजीत के कविता हो जाए क्या और बात है कोई? जी विकास जी।
नहीं, मैं तो खाली मधु जी की बात पे सच में सोच रहा था। मतलब ये जो राइट्स का सवाल है, ये तो अपने आप में बेमानी हो जाएगा अगर इस तरह से मतलब बहुत, ये एक कोई आइसोलेटेड इंसिडेंट नहीं है। लगातार मैं तो बहुत सारे कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में, इनफैक्ट ये कोविड-19 पेंडेमिक आने से पहले भी कई जगह पे बहुत लड़ाइयाँ हुई हैं। अब तो बड़ी तादाद में ऐसे स्पीकर्स आ रहे हैं, और वो केवल वही नहीं है जो मतलब इंडिया में संघ परिवार के हों, बल्कि न जाने कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, विदेशों से भी आ रहे हैं, और उनको ही कोट कर रहे हैं और ये कहते हैं कि अब तो पश्चिमी देशों ने भी ये मान लिया है, वेस्टर्न कंट्री ने भी मान लिया है कि मतलब डेमोक्रेसी जो है वो बेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नेंस नहीं है। इस तरह का प्रचार लगातार बहुत तेजी से बढ़ता जा रहा है, बहुत तेजी से। मतलब इसीलिए मैं ये I know, I mean, I should not have responded like this, but actually I have been really getting perturbed with this increasing I don't want to say rhetoric, but increasingly I mean, how to put it, a discourse which is becoming very dominant now everywhere. I mean, so it seems to be a preparation for the establishment of one man rule forever, kind of. So if that happens, then whether it is our demand for right to education, our demand for, as you said, getting a law uh, institutionalized in line with the UN Charter on Peasants and other rural workers, and all that becomes really just meaningless, because rights are enjoyed by citizens, not by subject population. Now, you could be subject not only of a colonial rule, you could be the subject of a monarch or of a queen also, if you don't have the right to elect him or her. And there's already so much of discussion going on. And I think it's quite relevant for us that the way they are saying, what is that? One election propaganda, in the NEP.
One nation, one election.
Yeah, so in our campaign against the NEP 2020, we are raising this whole question of federalism, while on the larger terrain of our politics, they give a damn to this idea of federalism.
To the constitution.
To the constitution, from where which is the fountain of
rights.
Yeah, of right, of federalism.
Yeah.
So
this is a very calculated attack, because you see, ये farmers movement को आप उस तरह से नहीं अटैक कर सकते जैसे आपने शाहीन बाग को किया। फार्मर्स मूवमेंट का आप बहुत ज्यादा गहरा अटैक लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। आप कह रहे हैं कि ये तो इनकी बात सही है, लेकिन अगर इतनी डेमोक्रेसी होगी हिंदुस्तान में, तो फिर हमारे यहाँ तरक्की और डेवलपमेंट नहीं हो सकती।
मधु जी, तरक्की का पैमाना ही बदला है ना।
जी
किसकी तरक्की
एग्जैक्टली। वो तो सवाल कोई पूछ ही नहीं रहा।
नहीं, वो तो हम इसीलिए
नहीं सर, मुझे लगता है कि आप थोड़ा उस पर रिस्पॉन्ड और करें। जो आपने कल एक बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट कमेंट किया था, हम डिस्कशन कर रहे थे कि ये हमारा किस तरह से फेलियर है कि हम सिंपल सी बात लोगों को कन्वे नहीं कर पा रहे हैं कि ये मतलब अगर एग्रीकल्चर प्राइसेस, एग्रीकल्चर कमोडिटीज के प्राइसेस इंक्रीज होंगे तो कंज्यूमर लेवल पे उनका कितना ज़्यादा इफेक्ट होगा, और कैसे हम सबको ही वो चीज़ें बहुत महंगे दामों पे मिल रही हैं और भी महंगी हो जाएंगी। एंड प्रोबेबली यू आर राइट, आई डू think that we are not able to communicate it this simple to people in our any capacity, being a individual, being a organization, being a movement. So in that context, probably what Subhash ji was saying, and to some extent someone else was I think giving somewhat what I should say, that exaggerated weight to the inherent movement, and we need to understand how we can actually develop ourselves in form of active movement whereby we could counter them. ये छोटी छोटी दुकानें जो हमारे मोहल्ले में हैं, यहाँ तक ये बात उन्होंने पहुंचा दी, अरे इनको तो सब तरह की सब्सिडी मिलती है, बैठ के वेले खाते हैं, इनको कोई काम नहीं है, खेती का तो सारा काम हो गया, अब यहाँ आ गए हैं तो चीजें तो मतलब जो है वो दिक्कत तो लोगों को होगी, दिल्ली वालों को होगी। या
You're right. Actually, the correlating the experience with the cause, like well, I've been talking to the women in Punjab, and finally I find that this echoes back. That demonetization was taking away their savings, and now we found that people did talk about that. So another point is that why, after taking away all the rights of the labor, there is not much of their participation, because they are not left with anything to survive. Because if he doesn't go to the work, he has nothing to, whereas peasants have at least the food in their control or under their control, which they can keep for surviving. So I think there are number of points we can discuss about, but the proper is that understanding that what they are or the system is doing and what the people's movement should raise. I remember one of the biographer of Bhagat Singh, his colleague said that Bhagat Singh was a very good strategician. He will put a argument in which both side is his, he is winner. और जैसे उसी को एक शेर में फैज ने कहा कि अगर बाजी इश्क की बाजी है तो लगा दो जो मन चाहे, जीत गए तो क्या कहने, हारे भी तो बाजी मात नहीं. That means you put such an argument, both side is winning, because if it is opposed, it exposes them. If it is adopted, you are victorious. So I think we have to build those arguments, and people have to be, or you are right, already they are trying to immune the Delhi from the farmers with all kind of propaganda, and they have a very good oiled propaganda machine. And one of the achievement of India is that even during Biden's campaign, the whole troll army was provided by India. And the word used by American press was troll farms. That they have actually engaged people just for that you can earn sitting at home is repeating these type of echoing all those type of tweets or well, some comments. So that is why. So that is there. But we let us see. Well, my point was that this is some point on which some discussion can take place, or at least awareness can be given that at the international level, these type of rights are recognized, and why don't we try to achieve them or bring on the anvil of understanding of the people. तो इंद्रजीत जी तुसी सुनाओगे कोई कविता तो फिर अपन बंद कर दे. Is 8:22.
ਸਰ ਥੋੜੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿੱਤੇ ਉਸ ਦਿਨ ਦੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਜਿੱਦਣ ਫਾਰਮਰਸ ਇਥੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ ਗਏ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਕਰਨ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਦਿਮਾਗ 'ਚ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਵੀ ਸੀ, ਔਰ ਅਗਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਲੱਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਮਾਫੀ ਮੰਗ ਲੈਂਦੀ ਹਾਂ. ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਵੀ. ਇਹ ਚਟਾਨਾਂ ਵਰਗੇ ਲੋਕ, ਇਹ ਚਟਾਨਾਂ ਵਰਗੇ ਲੋਕ ਤੇਰੇ ਬਣਾਏ ਟਿੱਬਿਆਂ ਪਹਾੜਾਂ ਤੇ ਪੁੱਟੀਆਂ ਖਾਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਟਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਨ. ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਬਾਛੜਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੌਸਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਖੋਰ ਸਕੀਆਂ, ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਪਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਮੋੜ ਤੇਰੇ ਹੰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਖੋਰਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਲਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ. ਇਹ ਨਾ ਸੋਚ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਅੱਕ ਥੱਕ ਕੇ ਬੈਠ ਜਾਣਗੇ. ਇਹ ਆਬਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਾਏ ਤਾਂ ਸੀਨੇ ਅੱਗਾਂ ਬਾਲ ਸਮੁੰਦਰ ਡੀਕਣਾ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਨੇ. ਇਹ ਚਟਾਨਾਂ ਵਰਗੇ ਲੋਕ ਜੋ ਘਾਹ ਵਾਂਗ ਵਿਛ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਉੱਪਰ, ਹੁਣ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੁੱਲ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਅੱਗੇ ਝੁਕਾਉਣ ਗਏ. ਇਹ ਚਟਾਨਾਂ ਵਰਗੇ ਲੋਕ.
बहुत खूब.
वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड.
Maybe राममूर्ति जी इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशन कर दो बाकी.
Basically, she was trying. Yeah, I may not be able to translate in that limit manner.
You can't. You just give the
sense of it.
Yeah, basically a sense of that said that these people are rock solid, and you tried everything. You poured water on that, and you tried to dug ditches and create lot many hurdles. But these people who have been, who are the son of soil and son of water, they are not going to bow before your any kind of tactics. And what they will do, they will certainly expose you before the world, and they will let you go in front of not only people of India, rather in front of world itself.
Yes.
So that was the basically gist, and which she used very wonderful metaphor and symbols.
Thank you. Thank you, Damodarji.
Acha, by the way, little bit of information.
Haji.
The BJP workers have just attacked and entered Sisodia's house.
Is it?
Yes.
It was afternoon's news, ma'am. I think probably
Oh,
this
I
was
didn't see
flashing
it
around.
in the